Wow, 250 interviews and still counting. Indie comic creators, your stories matter, your art inspires, and your passion is contagious. Today, we celebrate a major milestone: 250 glimpses into the imagination, creativity, and dedication that make this community thrive. Get ready for another epic conversation as we dive into the world of Hank Kanalz and uncover the magic behind their comics. Join the celebration by sharing your favorite indie comic moments in the comments below, and let's keep the creativity buzzing.
So how's it going, my Comicchatauthority? We're here today with Hank Kanalz, the publisher of Clover. How you doing, Hank?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being my 250th interview.
Yeah, congratulations. Man, 250. That's great.
Yeah, it's been a slow grind over the last 4 years to get to 250.
Yeah, but you blink and you're there, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't give it up for nothing. It was a roller coaster, and I've met some great creators and great stories, great comics.
Very cool.
So you used to work at DC and Malibu way back when, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Last 25 years has been at DC and Warner Brothers
How was
before
that?
Clover. That was fantastic. It was a series of different positions that I had during that time, but there's a good chunk of time in there, about 8 years that I spent traveling the world riding roller coasters for a living. That was probably one of the best jobs you could ask for if you like roller coasters. Probably the worst job you could ask for if you can't stand them. But I love them. My family loves them, and it was great to be able to do that. I can say that I have been around the world twice. I did 2 round the world trips, and I have ridden every single Batman ride in the world. So not many people can say that. There are a few other people who can say that, but not many. Count them maybe on one hand. But that was a great job. But after that, I settled down and worked at DC for a good chunk of time. Ran Wildstorm for DC down in San Diego. And then when Jim became publisher, we consolidated offices and we moved up to Burbank, and we eventually moved the New York offices out to Burbank, and so DC was centrally located out of Burbank, and that's where everyone still is, which is great.
I think everybody has in their head what DC and Marvel looks like. Like, when you see like movies in the stock market and everybody's yelling and you see papers.
Yeah,
That's what I imagine DC and Marvel looks like in the inside.
it's exactly like that. No, it's I had the same vision when I was in but a wee lad, and I went and visited DC for the first time, and then eventually Marvel. And you have this concept. There's this, they call it the bullpen, right? And it's certainly something that they perpetuate in the comics, where you've got this bullpen. And for a good chunk of time, some of it was done that way, where everyone's sitting at their artist desks, and people are screaming, "We've got a deadline!" and they're furiously inking and drawing, and just you think there's that kinetic energy, but it's a little bit more sedate. But people are still working in that kind of an environment, and they're passing pages back and forth, and it was pretty wild. This is a pre-digital age, right? So there were times putting out comics when we were all on paper and board, where if something needed to be inked, sometimes a page would get cut up and inked and then put back together. A lot of times when we were trying to make deadlines, a comic book would be drawn by several different artists, and they'd each take a couple pages. So when you're flipping through the comic, it's like 3 pages by one artist, 2 pages by another artist, 5 pages by another artist, all to make that deadline. That deadline's key. It's a perpetual deadline. It's an unforgiving deadline. Or you miss the deadline and then your book is late, which also happens. So, but yeah, both of them were like that in New York, and then the digital age happened, and of course now we work globally, and everyone sends their work in digitally. So
That's cool.
yeah,
And so you left the DC and started Clover?
yeah. So Clover was started by Ted Adams and Robbie Robbins. Those two cool cats had started IDW like 25 years ago. And they sold their company, and they decided to start another one, a small one. And then when I left DC, I had reached out and uh, chatted with Ted and Robbie and talked about what I would do if I wanted to join up at Clover, and it resonated really well with what they had envisioned for the company, and I started with them the same day. It was fantastic. We all have a very uh, similar sensibility in what we like, in what we're publishing, and great thing about Clover is it's a small company, and we kind of get to publish what we want, and that's kind of like the dream scenario. There are books out there that we want to publish, and some are going to be more commercially viable than others. But at the end of the day, it's books that we want on our bookshelves and books that we want on our coffee tables.
I found y'all by looking through Comic Geek, and I
Oh yeah,
seen the picture of Armored and read it and was like, yeah, this seems pretty cool.
that's great. Armored's a fantastic book. That's a debut book, guy named Michael Schwartz, and
Yeah.
Ismael Hernandez, amazing artist, and a really good read. So I'm glad you found us. That's actually great that that's how you found us. And Michael's a great guy, such a nice guy, and super talented. I think people need to keep an eye out on both of them. But uh, I've broken a lot of talent in my years in this business, and he's one of them. So
We talked to Michael recently, I think earlier this year.
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
That was cool. Good guy out of Canada.
Are you taking submissions for Clovers? Like, if somebody wants to submit their book, could they?
Not blindly. We'll probably get to the point where we can do that. It's sort of invitation only right now. But some advice for folks to break in: obviously, take a look at what we publish and see if we would be a good fit. And they can certainly send in a query letter, a pitch letter. Don't send us your concepts, but if you had if you want to maybe summarize what you have in mind in a paragraph, and you want to send that in. Hey, I've got a book about this, right? I've got a book about a kid who finds a set of haunted armor. Um, that's the way to start it, right?
Hmm. Yeah, because I think a lot of people try to do the McFarlane way, just pack up a bunch of books, mail them out to any and everybody that will accept them.
Yeah. No, if you already have a book that's published, and um, you're looking to do your next project, again, that would be you could send a PDF of it, right? That'd be a
Mm.
great way to show that you know what you're doing, and that you're ready to do the next project. It's an interesting, comics over the years, the barriers to entry in our industry have been at this lowered. Really, it's much easier to break in today than it was to break in 25 years ago. And it might still seem hard right now, but it's way easier today than it was 25 years ago, in my opinion. Um, and what any publisher is looking for is talent, dependable talent, right? So talent who can deliver on what they promise, because again, that deadline is a relentless thing. It's never ending, and you got to keep up with this stuff.
So just to go back really quick, when you said you was riding roller coasters, did you get to ride these roller coasters before anybody else?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's like so. I don't know how familiar you are with theme parks, but so there's a ride here in California, Superman the Ride, and it was one of the a linear induction motor coasters, one of the first. So it takes off, right, and shoots you up straight up, 0 to 60 in like a second or whatever, but it shoots you straight up in the air. And I had to do a company presentation on this ride, so they had it in them. They got the idea that they wanted to shoot me on the ride, so they put me in the ride and they shot me up there. And of course, in typical media fashion, they can't just do it in one take. It was a perfect take, but they want to get you from all angles. So I had to ride this roller coaster. They did 8 takes, 8 in a row, just boom, boom, boom. It's just, and I still love the ride, but 8 in a row is, experiencing that kind of G-force on you uh, hits the frame hard. But they got great footage, and it's a fantastic ride. So yeah, I get to do that. I don't test it. I let the ride test dummies do that first, because and they do have them, right? They have like the little humans. They strap them in. But once it passes that, then it's real fun to get to go on those rides.
And you're putting out an art book with Marvel.
We are actually several. We've already released the Marvel art of David Mack and Alex Malev and David Nakayama. Those are actually released and available for sale, also on our website. We are producing uh, 2 others right now: the Marvel art of Russell Dodderman and the Marvel art of Michael Turner, and those will be out before the end of the year. And then we are going to be launching very soon. Can't tell you which day it is, but very, very soon we'll be launching, or maybe the time this airs, it'll be already launched, right? So it'll
Yeah.
be the Marvel art of Michael Allred. And so that one will be that'll be live very soon. And we already have about 8 more artists lined up for 2025, and more after that. It's going to be pretty exciting.
So in these books, is it all new art, or is it their art over the span of their career?
It collects the art that spans her career. So, like David Mack and Alex Malev, they've been in comics for a long time, and a good chunk of that time spent at Marvel, at least 25, possibly 30 years, between 25 and 30 years for both of them. And so it was real hard to narrow down all that art, because if you can imagine, over that span of time, they've produced thousands of pages and covers. So the book actually kind of explores that span of time, and we really kind of picked the best of the best and some of their favorite pieces. And there's some process pieces in there, so you can see the pencils, the sketches to the pencils to the inks to the colors to the final product. It's real nice. David Nakayama, I'd say he's a little younger, so maybe the last 12 years, 10 to 12 years. Um, and then our Russell Dodderman book is celebrating his 10 years at Marvel. He's been exclusive at Marvel for this last decade, responsible for designing so many of the new character designs that they're using, especially in X-Men. Um, Pretty well known for his work on X-Men, Scarlet Witch, Thor, probably one of the better known runs that he's on. And the book collects all of that art and shows his costume designs, his process pieces. We just got the make ready for that book. So make ready is a sample book from the printer that shows how the pages are being cropped and bound and color checks and things like that. It's just a gorgeous book, fantastic book. And then Michael Turner, we lost him. We lost him too soon. Fantastic artist, passed away, but he did a lot of work at Marvel. And this is actually probably the only place you're going to find all of his art collected in one spot, in his book, the Marvel art of Michael Turner. So we're pretty excited about those. And that was essentially one of the things that I had pitched Ted and Robbie on. They had already started doing some art books. One of the first art books that they did at Clover before I got there was the fantastic illustrations of Timothy Truman, another fantastic artist. It's a beautiful book. And then we also have another art book by an artist named Ray Troll. He's out of Alaska. And you may not recognize the name, but you'll recognize his art, because almost everyone I know has a T-shirt that was designed by Ray Troll. That man's sold over, I think, 3 million T-shirts in his art career. He has a gallery up in Alaska, and Robbie is a passionate fisherman, and was connected to Ray in that regard, and did a fantastic job putting that book together.
Sweet. And I just found out you created the image I.
Yeah, no, that's great too. I mean, that stands the test of time. That was a long time ago, very long time ago. That was like right when they started with Adobe Illustrator, right? That was just coming out. But yeah, those were some interesting days, the Image days.
Is there somebody that you've always wanted to work with that you didn't have the chance to?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, you know, I spent a lot of time at DC and had the opportunity to work with a lot of folks. I was blessed to work with George Perez for several issues back on Ultra Force, and he passed also. But he would probably, if you were to ask me like my favorite run of comics, it would be the New Teen Titans with Marv Wolfman and George Perez, and I was actually very blessed to be able to work with both of them on separate projects, and you couldn't find nicer creators than that. Um, I'll say never because there's always an opportunity. If there's anyone left that I haven't worked with, uh, I still have an opportunity to work with them. But I think I've done a pretty good job of working with the folks that I set out to want to work with. Um, and I really love finding and breaking new talent. So I kind of enjoy doing that and looking back uh, on the talent that I have worked with over the years. Very fortunate to be partnered with an amazing set of talented individuals. That's a great question. I've never been asked that, and I'd have to give it some long thought. Um, but I was fortunate enough at DC that if there was someone to make that list, I probably would have worked with them. Certainly, maybe not on a creative project, uh, like where I was editing or writing a project, but certainly been able to work with them in some capacity. So,
Was
but
you
I'm gonna think about that in case someone asks me that again.
was what Did you get to keep any of the cool art, or was you ever gifted any cool art pages?
No, so all the artwork belongs to the artists, and it gets returned. But it's interesting you asked that because there was a cover that George Perez drew for Ultra Force, and it was a character that I had created for the company. Her name was Siren, and the cover was never used that I know of, that I've seen. And it was basically, she's uh, bursting through a door. She's clearly been injured. She might be close to death. Fantastic cover. And I just happened to be on eBay one day, and I had done a search for George Perez art, and that cover popped up. And I couldn't believe that it popped up because I hadn't even thought of that cover for maybe 20 years, and there it was. And I put a bid on it, and then someone outbid me, and so it's just like kind of got in a small bidding war. um, and this was after he passed away too. So I ended up winning that auction, and it's a cover that means more to me, and it'll mean more to me than it will mean to anyone else who would ever buy it, because it was a character that I created, and that he drew that cover for me while I was at Malibu, but I had left Malibu before um, they had used the cover, so it was stuck in the Malibu vaults. um, so someone freed it from wherever it was and put it up for sale, and I bought that, and that was maybe a year ago, not even a year ago. So that's a great piece. And there are a couple other random pages that artists have gifted or sold me over the years. A lot of times, some artists will work my name into their art, and that's the page that they usually give me. So I enjoy that. And a couple times, folks have drawn what a version of me in their comic. So those are always fun. So.
That's cool. Who's your favorite superhero?
Oh, my favorite superhero. So I'll go with the group, the New Teen Titans, followed by the Legion of Superheroes, followed by the X-Men. I would say those are my tops. So
Good
I can't
choice.
just pick one, man. But I like the Flash quite a bit too, and he was the first character I wrote for DC back in that was 1988. So I like him quite a bit. Um, and that was Wally West Flash.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of Barry Allen Flash as well. There's so many of them.
So when you get a character like the Flash, do they say, "All right, we want a story like this," or they just let you have at it?
Well, for the Flash, that being the first published work, it was part of a program that DC was running called the Bonus Book Program, and it was their way of breaking new talent. I had sent in a spec script to DC. She should never do. And they liked it and told me, you should never do this. Don't ever do this again, because it puts them in some jeopardy. Because if they were to end up publishing a story that was very similar to what I had sent, then they don't want to be in a position where I could say, "Oh, you stole my story," which I wouldn't do, but people do. Um, but they liked the script, and so they said, we've got this opening on the Flash book. Would you want to write it?" It's like, absolutely. So what we want to do is we want you to explain the origin of Blue and Red Trinity, which were the Russian super speedsters. And I said, great. Like, what do we know? And they said nothing. You've got carte blanche. You can figure out what their origin story is. So it was a retrofit. They had already existed as characters, but they never had an origin story. So I got to write their origin story. So yeah, that was the the limitation was it's got to be about Blue and Red Trinity. Other than that, write what you want to write. And so that was a great opportunity. And I'd say the same thing for anything else that I've written. It was more, you have the freedom to do what you want, but pitch us on it, and I'll let you know if it's going to be any good. It's a little different now. A lot of times we'll ask a writer to figure out their outline, and then we would put bumpers on and kind of move them in the direction that they need to go in. Every series is different, and every editor runs their books differently at DC.
I appreciate you being my 250th interview, Hank. Is there anything you want to say
Yeah.
before we go?
No, I appreciate the time. We're pretty excited about our Marvel Art of books that are coming out of Clover. We got a whole bunch of other things, including an Armored original graphic novel. We're going to be doing a collected edition of those first 5 issues into one hardcover, and then Michael is already hard at work on his follow-up story, the next arc in his story in Armored, and so that'll be coming in 2025. We just wrapped up a Kickstarter called The Golem of Venice Beach, and that was book 2. So we had done book 1 back in 2022, and now we've got the follow-up coming out early next year. That's by Hanan Beezer and Vanessa Cardinale. And just keep an eye out. Check us out on Kickstarter. We usually always have a campaign running. And then check us out in your comic book shop and in your Diamond and Lunar preview catalogs. We've always got something interesting going on.
Appreciate you taking the time to come talk with me, Hank.
No, same, anytime.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on, subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.